It seems like everywhere you turn these days, true crime is just staring you in the face.
Oh, absolutely.
Scrolling through the news, podcasts, documentaries, even just casual conversations.
Yeah.
It's in our books, it's on YouTube, it's a full-blown phenomenon.
It really is.
And that really gets you thinking, why are we so fascinated by this stuff? These often really disturbing stories.
Yeah.
So today, we're going deep, a real deep dive into the heart of true crime obsession. We're looking at the psychology behind it, the role of media, and we even found some thought-provoking ideas about how evolution might be playing a part.
Interesting.
So we're cutting through the noise to give you a clear view of why true crime holds such a grip on our imaginations.
Oh, great.
We're going beyond the surface, searching for those unexpected insights.
Right.
But don't worry, you don't need to be a detective or forensic scientist to follow along.
No, not at all. It's a really great question to explore.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's everywhere. You see it on every platform, every form of media.
Right.
And that's not by chance. It's not random. There's some really strong reasons why these stories grab us the way they do. Reasons that we've been exploring in our research.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Yeah.
Let's start with our own minds, the psychology of it all.
Okay.
One of the first things that jumped out at me was this whole idea of controlled fear.
Yes.
It's like you get a little rush, right? A jolt of adrenaline similar to watching a scary movie.
Yeah.
But you're safe on your couch. You're in control.
Exactly. That's the key. That safe distance, that control over the experience, that ability to engage with danger, the themes of threat,
right,
without actually being in any personal risk. You get that release of cortisol and adrenaline, but in a safe environment. And what's fascinating is it can actually help regulate our responses to stress in the real world.
Oh, wow.
Almost like an inoculation.
Really?
Yeah, it's a way to process those feelings that are associated with fear, but in a manageable way.
I like that, a stress inoculation.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you layer on top of that just our natural human curiosity.
Right.
We're fascinated by people. What makes them tick, their motivations.
Their drives.
But when someone steps outside the lines, right, when they commit these really extreme acts, it seems like that curiosity just explodes.
It intensifies, yeah.
It's like, how can someone think like that? This is almost a completely alien way of thinking.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to solve this really, really complex puzzle.
Yeah.
And you're trying to put together the pieces of a mind that functions so differently from our own.
Right. Outside our moral code.
Way outside.
Completely. And so many of these stories, these true crime narratives,
Yeah.
they lay out the clues. They lead you through the investigation. They give you that aha moment, that explanation.
The why.
The why, exactly. And that really plays into this human need to solve problem.
I think so. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Now, this one was kind of unexpected for me, but there's this evolutionary angle to consider, that our interest in true crime, in learning how these things happen, who the victims are.
Right.
It could actually have roots in survival instincts. It's like we're gathering information to protect ourselves, to avoid becoming victims.
Subconsciously, perhaps?
Subconsciously, exactly. Like a defense mechanism.
Well, if you think about it, going way back, early humans, early human communities, learning from the mistakes, the misfortunes of others, that's always been a key survival strategy.
Right.
So even if it's happening on a level we're not fully aware of, understanding patterns of danger, that could have helped them assess risks, avoid certain situations.
That makes sense.
Even think about early forms of storytelling. They probably serve that exact purpose.
Sharing those cautionary tales.
Exactly. Warnings passed down through generations.
Okay, and then there's something a little more, well, maybe a little less primal, but still very human.
Yeah.
That desire for justice.
Oh, right.
A lot of these true crime stories, they follow a certain arc. The perpetrator is caught, they face consequences, there's a resolution. That sense of justice being served, that has to be a huge part of the appeal.
Oh, absolutely. That need for justice, it's deeply ingrained in us, right?
Yeah.
When we see something wrong, a violation, we want to see it corrected, balanced.
Yeah.
And so many of these stories provide that closure, that feeling, that order has been restored. And in a world where sometimes real-world justice feels incomplete or even out of reach.
Right, exactly.
That can be incredibly satisfying for people.
Okay. So we've talked about some of those internal forces, the psychology driving our interest.
Yeah.
But what about the external factors?
Okay.
The media has clearly played a huge role in putting true crime front and center. It feels like it's exploded in recent decades.
I mean, no doubt about it.
And even the way these stories are presented has really changed.
It really has. The media landscape has shaped our relationship with true crime, magnified it.
Yeah.
As we've seen in our research, crime stories have always been a part of news and entertainment. But the thing about news, it often leans towards the sensational.
Right. If it leads, it leads. Right.
Yeah. The more shocking, the more unusual, the more attention it gets.
That's a built-in bias.
Okay, yeah.
The more extreme the crime,
The more it stands out.
the more we seem to be drawn to it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you've got these shows making a murderer, serial, mind hunter.
Right.
Incredibly well produced. They've turned true crime into this must-watch, binge-worthy content.
What's really fascinating about those shows, they use storytelling techniques you see in fiction.
Yeah.
You know, building suspense, developing characters, both the investigators and the suspects.
Uh-huh.
And they often leave us with lingering questions.
Uh-huh.
Like, is this really the whole story?
Right, just like a good thriller.
Yeah, and that blurring of real events and entertainment, I think that's a big part of the appeal.
Absolutely. And then you can't forget the accessibility.
Oh, right?
It's everywhere. New podcasts popping up all the time. Endless true crime channels on YouTube. Streaming services are churning out documentaries. You can get your fix literally anytime, day or night.
That 247 access, that changes everything.
Yeah.
It fuels the interest, keeps people immersed in this world. You know, you have these online communities popping up.
Right.
Dedicated to dissecting cases, sharing theories. It's a whole subculture.
It really is. And all that exposure, I mean, in a way, it makes this consumption of often very dark material feel normal.
Almost expected.
Right. So that leads to a really important question.
Yeah.
With all this true crime content swirling around us, are there downsides? Is it all harmless fun?
That is a really important question. I mean, we've talked about the psychological draws, the engaging narratives, but we have to think about the potential negative impacts, too.
Yeah.
One concern that's often raised is the possibility of becoming desensitized to violence.
Oh, wow.
You know, being exposed to graphic details, even in a mediated form, over and over again. It could potentially dull our emotional response to real suffering.
That's a bit unsettling.
Yeah, it's something to think about.
And then there's the ethical tightrope that creators are walking.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you tell these stories responsibly
Right.
without causing more pain to the victims and their families?
Yeah.
Or even worse, without somehow glorifying the perpetrators?
That's a really important point. Both for the creators and for us as consumers, we have to remember that these are real lives, real tragedies.
Yeah.
And when entertainment becomes the priority, you risk exploiting that tragedy, losing sight of the human cost.
I know some people who say they actually feel more anxious, more paranoid after watching or listening to a lot of true crime.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Even if they live in a relatively safe environment.
If you're constantly exposed to stories about violence, victimization,
Yeah.
it's going to impact your sense of safety, your vulnerability. It's just natural.
It makes sense. So if we're interested in true crime, are there ways to engage with it more responsibly?
I think so. Our research suggests that choosing content that emphasizes justice for the victims, maybe focuses on prevention efforts or victim advocacy, that could be a more constructive approach.
Okay.
Shifting the focus from the sensational to the systemic, looking at the broader context.
Right, trying to make a positive impact. Now, one thing that always comes up is that a lot of true crime fans are women.
Yes.
What's the thinking behind that?
Well, there are a few interesting theories. One is that women might be engaging with it as a way to learn, you know, maybe subconsciously, about potential threats, strategies for self-protection.
Like a survival guide.
Exactly, looking for patterns, warning signs, ways to avoid dangerous situations.
It's a tough world out there.
It is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And knowledge can be power.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wonder if it's not partly about empathy.
Oh, interesting.
You know, connecting more deeply with the victims, wanting to see justice served.
That's a really compelling point.
Could that be stronger in women?
Studies have shown there are some gender differences when it comes to empathy. So it's certainly possible that women are experiencing these stories on a deeper emotional level.
Makes sense.
Feeling a greater sense of urgency for resolution, for accountability.
And beyond those reasons, I mean, is it also just the intrigue?
Sure.
The puzzle of the human mind, the why, does that appeal to women in the same way it appeals to men?
Absolutely. That fundamental fascination with human behavior.
Yeah.
Trying to grasp why someone would do these things. understand the extremes of human experience.
Right, even the dark side.
Exactly, the dark side. I think that's a pretty universal draw.
It's timeless, too. Our fascination with true crime, it goes way back.
Oh, for sure.
There are certain cases that have really embedded themselves in our collective consciousness.
Cases that have become legends.
Legends, yeah.
True crime has a long, fascinating history.
Uh-huh.
I mean, think about Jack the Ripper back in the late 1800s.
Oh, yeah, Victorian London?
A terrifying case.
Totally.
And the mystery surrounding the killer.
Never solved.
Never solved.
Never solved.
They captured the public imagination then.
Uh-huh.
And people are still talking about it, writing about it, making films about it today.
That shadowy figure, a real-life boogeyman.
Yeah.
And then you jump ahead almost a century.
All right.
The Zodiac Killer.
Oh, yes.
The 60s and 70s. Another case shrouded in mystery.
Still unsolved.
Still unsolved. And it just keeps generating documentaries, amateur investigations.
What's so captivating about cases like that, the Zodiac, is the fact that they're unsolved.
Yeah.
The lack of resolution, the open questions.
It keeps those stories alive.
It fuels speculation, keeps people searching for answers.
And the Zodiac, with those cryptic messages, the ciphers, it became like a giant puzzle.
A dark societal puzzle that we're still trying to solve.
Then you've got someone like Ted Bundy in the 70s.
Right.
He really flipped the script on what we thought a serial killer looked like.
He was charismatic,
Yeah.
seemingly normal,
Yeah.
which made his crimes even more unsettling, even more fascinating to people.
He didn't fit the mold.
He didn't fit the molds at all.
And that was terrifying.
Bundy's case was really significant because it showed us that evil can be disguised, that it can hide in plain sight.
Yeah.
It shattered those preconceived notions about what a criminal looks like, acts like, and it highlighted the fact that danger isn't always obvious.
Right. You can't always judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. And that betrayal of trust, of normalcy, that's what was so deeply disturbing.
And then closer to our own time, the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah.
The 90s, that felt like this huge cultural moment.
It really was.
Crime and entertainment completely converged. The 24-hour news cycle amplifying every detail.
The O.J. case was a turning point.
Yeah.
That constant media coverage, the celebrity involvement, the social and racial dynamics, it created this true crime spectacle that captivated the nation.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it foreshadowed how we consume and discuss true crime in this digital age.
It laid the groundwork.
It did, absolutely.
So all these cases, these landmark cases, they've really shaped our ongoing fascination.
They've become part of the cultural fabric.
And it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon.
I don't think so.
True crime is here to stay. It's embedded in our culture.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a fleeting trend. It's a genre that keeps evolving, as we've seen in our research. You have advancements in forensic science, constantly offering new perspectives on old cases.
Right, like we can solve cases now that were mysteries for decades.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our understanding of criminal psychology is constantly deepening.
We're getting better at profiling, understanding the motivations.
And unfortunately, new real-life cases keep emerging.
Yeah.
New stories to captivate us, new mysteries to unravel.
It's the cycle, isn't it? Mystery, investigation, and sometimes resolution, and it keeps drawing us in.
It does, whether it's the puzzle itself, the psychological insights, or that desire for justice. There's so much to explore.
So we're really curious, for all of you listening right now, where do you fall on the spectrum of true crime consumption?
Yeah, good question.
Are you a casual listener, someone who dips in and out? Or do you devour every new case, every podcast episode, every documentary?
Yeah, think about it.
Remember those motivations we talked about, the controlled fear, the curiosity about the criminal mind, that maybe subconscious survival instinct, the desire for justice.
What resonates with you?
What connects with your interest in these stories? And maybe, just as a final thought to leave you with, given all the reasons we've explored, all the complexities, what does our fascination with the dark side of humanity really say about us?
That's something to ponder.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into true crime.